now men feel as if what women are trying to say is men have the green card or the green light to simply take a dump truck full of emotions and put it on the women.
One thing that the women I speak to all the time get wrong is that
when we need to take full responsibility that no matter what's going on to us, the emotions that it's causing is happening within.
if you just do that one thing, your life will be a lot more peaceful and a lot more conflict-free than it is right now.
And so all we can do for people in those situations is show them unconditional love.
When a man doesn't follow through on his word, he is at his most vulnerable. And what you say and how you respond to him is everything. Welcome back to Listen Before Love. We are so excited to have you back again for episode 6.
Episode 6, it's going fast.
Oh my goodness, I cannot believe we're here. And today we have got a special hot topic for everybody. This is a question we get asked all the time on a near daily basis. How do you have healthy communication with someone that you love? And what comes to mind immediately for me is that healthy communication is simply putting words to your feelings in a way that makes the person you're talking to feel seen, loved, and heard. To me, that's the foundation of healthy communication. How would you define it, my love?
I completely agree. No matter what kind of topic needs to be talked about, there is a way we can do it in a loving way. No matter the subject. And so keeping that on top of mind, that I want this next conversation to fuel our love that we have for another, not to take away from it, is a fantastic lens to approach everything in life, but especially hard conversations with a loved one.
I love that, baby. And I think if you don't take anything away from this podcast but one sentence, it's if you can ask, how can I approach this conversation in a way that makes that person I'm talking to feel more love? If you can just ask yourself that one question, how can I be more loving? Because you're in full control of how loving you are. You cannot control the reaction of the other person, but you can control how you approach it. So before you have any hard conversation, if you simply take a second, sit with yourself and say, how do I want to feel in this conversation? What feeling do I want to bring to this conversation? Do I want to bring calmness? Do I want to bring quiet, silent strength? Do I want to bring peace, love? If those are the emotions that you'd like to feel in the conversation, guess what? You will then bring those emotions to the person you're talking to. And I think that is actually, because people skip that step and go right on into the hard conversation from a place of being triggered, from a place of heightened emotion, from a place of anger or pride or pointing fingers, that is where all the breakdowns happen. So, if you remember nothing else from this episode, it is right before you have a hard conversation, simply ask yourself, how do I want to feel while having this conversation? Get yourself into that emotional state and then have it. If you just do that one thing, your life will be a lot more peaceful and a lot more conflict-free than it is right now.
I completely agree. However you feel approaching that conversation is exactly how the person's going to feel. If you feel angry, they're going to leave feeling angry. If you feel angry, they may leave feeling more shame and guilty for whatever that you did to that, whatever it is. But a negative emotion you bring to that conversation will never trigger a positive emotion between you two. And so what I've realized is it's in my best interest to do whatever I can to self-regulate before I enter a more undesirable conversation.
How do you do that, baby?
There's a handful of different ways. I try to always keep in mind that the other person is constantly doing what they believe is in their best interest, and that there may be more information to the story I've created in my head that would help me better understand where they're coming from. And that goes from, the most minor things in the world to the most major things. To know that we may not have the full piece of the puzzle yet allows for me to take a step back and not make nearly as many assumptions, which allows me to come at it at more of a loving lens of curiosity to understand why they did that or why they believe in that, whatever maybe that happened, as opposed to pointing a finger and being quick to shame to make the other person feel guilty by any means.
So it sounds like the first step you do is assuming good intentions.
Most definitely. Yeah.
Especially if it's someone in your life who you feel like you have a bond with, relationship with, whether it's your partner or a friend. If you just start by saying, I assume that this person is coming from love, and I assume that they did what they did, said what they said, or made me feel this certain way because they care about me and they love me, and they may have not intended to have the impact that they did. So if you just start from that very base layer of, I assume good intent from this person, then you can get more into understanding what it triggered within you that caused a reaction to make you even want to have this hard conversation, right? So then once you assume good intent, what's the next thing that you do?
Assuming good intent allows for me to process the situation in a very different way.
Ooh.
So oftentimes there is, as soon as I hear something that a loved one did, whether I heard it from them, saw the action from them, or heard it from another third party, there's a whirlwind of emotions that take place. And I know if I were to act upon those emotions of anger, of sadness, of shame, of guilt, whatever it was that it prompted within me, if I were to act upon that, like I said in the beginning, it's only going to lead to those exact same emotions amplified to the other person. And so what I've realized is that it's in my best interest to self-regulate by what I would call healing modalities, but simply just taking time to reflect, some solitude time, going on a walk. Every time I go for a walk, I come back to the house feeling lighter and feeling happier and feeling more relaxed and calm than when I started. So going for a walk, I love sauna and cold plunge. I do one of those sessions for 45 minutes and I feel like I could just release any emotion within me. I could think things through if necessary. But simply taking some space for oneself when they find out undesirable news allows us to really process it in a much more clean way. What I also like to do is I also like to do something that's moving my body. So I'm not in my head. If I were to just hear some terrible news and then just stay at my computer desk and just start thinking about it the entire time, I'm just going to think my way into circles. If I want to move past something, I physically shouldn't be moving to do so. So that's what I've learned a lot. Like I said, going for a walk in the past is going for a run, moving my body in some way. Sometimes it's doing breath work, doing, certain meditation or breath work practice to allow myself to just kind of release it and to allow a solution, if that's what's necessary, to come to my mind and find me, as opposed to me trying to frantically find it. And so ever since I've adopted or implemented that into my life, for the far majority of interactions I've had, it has made the situation so much better. And it made me realize that what I heard, number one, may not be the true story. And it definitely probably isn't the full story.
Yeah.
And so I currently, for the far majority of information we have in life, is insufficient. And so to get the whole piece of the puzzle, we need to oftentimes go to the source of that pain, of that undesirable emotion, and ask questions out of curiosity. Shine light on the newfound information you've been given by someone else or by them, but then also ask from a lens of, curiosity and just overall wanting to understand better, other than wanting to point the finger, has allowed for me to not turn what could have been a war or a battle. It allowed me to just keep it as a loving, clarifying conversation. But the number one thing I've learned is just take your own time for yourself.
Before you have the conversation.
And that can be 15 minutes. If they say something, you're like, hey, what I've done in the past actually is, if someone says something's very triggering to me and I can feel it, I know if I were to say something in that moment, I would react in a way that I'd probably regret later. What I would say is like, what you just said just really didn't sit well with me at this current moment. And I want to perceive you through a loving lens. And I've noticed that I may not be able to do that in this exact moment. So I'm going to take 15 minutes, going to take an hour. I'm going to talk to you about this, whether it's, 15 minutes or tomorrow, whatever it is, whatever the situation calls for. I'm going to go process this to make sure that when I engage with you again, it's going to come through a loving lens. And so when you have that conversation with someone who just hurt you, or you believe hurt you with their words or actions, whatever it may be, and you say exactly what you're going to do, they have an immense amount more respect for you for doing so.
Mm-hmm.
No woman in the world, unless they're being toxic, or a man, is going to be like, no, we need to do this right now.
Right.
Because if they want what's best for you, like you just said, you clarified how you know what's going to be best for you, to give yourself a little bit of space, yourself a little bit of time, and come back to the loving lens. If they don't want that, they don't actually want what's best for the relationship.
Ooh. They almost want to egg you on into saying something that you're going to regret.
Exactly.
To maybe hold it over you.
They want a war.
They want a war. That's really critical. I think when you're on the receiving end of this, because this happens with Cam and I, in a way that is so natural and loving that I don't even notice it's happening, where there will be just times where he doesn't even have to communicate that to me. He will just go on a walk. Be like, oh, baby, I'm going to go out for a walk for a little bit. I'm like, okay, darling. And then he goes on his walk and he comes back. And a lot of the times this is happening, I don't even know it's happening because we're living in a world where our communication feels so good that he never brings me into his negative emotions. He never brings me his unprocessed emotions that are coming from a place of trigger. And I think that that's something it's really, really important in healthy communication. If you are coming from a place of calmness, and I know this is hard, this takes practice. You don't just go from 0 to when you get triggered, hey, I'm going to take a moment, what you said, trigger something in me, and I'm going to need some space to figure out exactly what that is before I go forward. You don't just go from, boiling over with anger to that. This is going to take practice and be very judgment-free and gentle with yourself, wherever you are in that journey. But just having the awareness of how that is the healthiest way to communicate will make this easier and easier and easier the next time that you're in these situations. But one thing that I want to dive in on what you said, and I think that this is so powerful for you as a man to be saying this because it creates such an emotional safety foundation for women, is when a man feels an emotion very deeply and is coming from a place of trigger. So let's say an anger or a pride emotion or grief or one of these deep, deep, more negative emotions is coming to the party. I think a lot of men that I've encountered don't know to take the time to process that emotion alone first before they bring it to a woman. And I know we've mentioned this in a previous episode, but I think that this is one of the ways that having too much, call it therapy speak, accessible to everyone has actually made men go in the wrong direction when it comes to their feelings. I think I hear a lot of people say, like, all feelings are perfect, all feelings are valid, all feelings should be shared. I don't agree. I don't think you should take every single feeling you have to your partner. I think that if you have a feeling, especially if it's anger as a man, which can be very startling, create a lot of unsafety in a woman. If you have that feeling, it's your responsibility to notice that feeling rising you and then go and do whatever feels right to you to process that feeling and then come back to the woman from a place of love, a place of calmness, and a place of compassion. Because where a relationship breakdown can really start is when a man specifically is bringing his unprocessed emotions to a woman. Now, this could be anything from anger and yelling and screaming to crying. I think where we have kind of broken down in this adventure of emotions is we haven't been telling men, yes, every feeling that you have is valid. Absolutely they are. But there's a time and a place and a way to express those feelings to your partner. And I don't think anyone, man or woman, should be bringing raw, unprocessed emotions to their partner so that you need someone else to basically be your emotional regulation system. We need to go within ourselves and do that first before we bring it to our partner, because then we're going to create a cycle of very raw, tumultuous, unprocessed emotions that makes both parties feel codependent and unsafe. What do you think about that?
I completely agree. I think there's been a huge pendulum swing recently in the past, I'd say 5 years or so, when it comes to men expressing their emotions. We went from generation upon generation of men only be able to say, I'm fine.
Right.
I'm all right. We're getting through. Whatever it was, went from that pretty much a brick wall personality, one side of the extreme, to the complete opposite, to where now men feel as if what women are trying to say is men have the green card or the green light to simply take a dump truck full of emotions and put it on the women. All the anger, all the shame, all the guilt, all the sadness, all the joy, whatever it is that they're going through. Oftentimes it's not just that one occurrence or situation. Oftentimes it's their entire childhoods,
Yes.
Unfelt emotions and just thrown at the women. That's not what women want either.
Right.
That's something that women haven't been able to, and men haven't been able to properly articulate yet. There is a balance between those two extremes of the brick wall and the dump truck of all the emotions.
Yes.
The middle ground for that, and what men, I believe, need to learn if they want to have a healthy relationship nowadays, is they need to fully understand that how the world makes them feel, they may not have full control over, but they do have full control over how they react to that feeling. It is their responsibility to fully feel whatever's being thrown at them and process it in a way where it only expands the love of everyone around them. It's not bring anyone else down. I'm not saying you can't have a hard conversation with your woman or with the boys, whatever it is. What I'm saying is it is our responsibility to learn how to process those emotions so it does not deeply affect the people around us.
Yeah.
And I believe that is done by taking full responsibility of how we reacted to any situation. Now, what I mean by that is you can say something that makes me angry. And since the dawn of time, we've been told, I can say to you, you made me angry. When that's not actually the case, I made myself angry. I allowed myself to be angry based off of what you said, because the exact same thing you said can make someone else very happy. Your words are neither good nor bad. They just are. I am choosing how I want to perceive them to be. Now, let's take an example, right? Let's say you and I had talked about in the past of, you know what, we want to have kids in the next 2 years. But then you come to me a few weeks later and you're like, you know what? I want to work. I know this isn't the case for us at all, but I want to work. I want to, become partner at this law firm. I want to do X, Y, Z. I think I want to hold off to having kids for another 7 to 8 years. But myself, I really want kids and I want them soon. And I've structured the finances, I've structured businesses, I've structured everything to make sure that I have the freedom to do parenting in the next handful of years. And you just push that timeline back way further than I ever could have imagined. That may cause some men to be like, what the fuck? I'm angry. You're making me angry because you told me one thing to another. That is a story I've created in my head about how things should be. And because you no longer want them to be that way, I am choosing to be angry. When we need to take full responsibility that no matter what's going on to us, the emotions that it's causing is happening within. And we can look upon the situation and be like, I'm grateful for you speaking your truth. It's completely okay. I'm not saying you got to agree with everything your woman wants to do. What I am saying is that you can see them expressing their truth as their full truth and not taking it as a personal attack. Does it make any sense what I'm getting at there? Okay. So it's very important for especially men and women to understand that the emotions they feel after a conversation is 100% on them. It is their responsibility to process it, to feel it fully, so that it does not affect the people around them going forward. So if you were to say something like that example I just gave, and the first things that come to my mind is, well, that doesn't fit into the timeline. That's not what she said a few weeks ago. I'm feeling angry. What I can do is say like, hey, I'm happy for you and I'm grateful that you've expressed that to me. It's also very different from what I've been planning for quite a while now. And when you first said that, I felt these feelings. I chose to felt these feelings of anger and sadness, to be honest. And I want to have a loving conversation with you, especially for something this is important. And I don't know if I can fully do that right now with this feeling of anger I have. So I'm going to take an hour. I'm going to go for a walk outside in the sun and just process everything you just said. And I'd love to, reopen this conversation soon so that we could plan out the rest of our lives in a way that feels right to both of us. Is that okay with you?
Of course.
Amazing. And then you go do it. And then within that hour, within that walk, whatever it is, the first thing I need to remember is they said that for a reason. They're feeling some type of way. It may be the honest truth that she does want to do these things, or it could be out of fear and scarcity. Whatever it is, we can hold them with an underlying foundation of love. And when we come back to them an hour, we can ask more questions through a loving lens. I can be like, what inside of you makes you want to wait a little bit longer? And I can see that through a curiosity point of view as opposed to what makes you want to wait longer.
Yeah.
There are different tones I can have around it. And then you may go on a long explanation about how you want to get certain career metrics and stuff like that. And then I can ask more questions about that. Or I can say, my body doesn't feel like it's ready. I want to regulate. I want to get a lot healthier. I want to get off whatever I'm on at the moment. There's an explanation that will probably take place that will allow me to better understand your situation. Doesn't mean I'm always going to agree with it, but it will bring more understanding to what's going on. And that understanding, because I'm learning more about the human side of you, will lead to my anger diminishing more and more. Now, there are people in this world that do things that feel unexplainable. But even if we're in a room full of superhero movie villains and we got to know them more, we started asking questions from a more genuine lens of curiosity, we're only going to increase the capacity of empathy that we have for them and compassion. And so this is only possible when you are surrounded by people that you genuinely believe want what's best for you, and you genuinely believe are doing what's best for themselves. And you just want them to be the happiest, healthiest, highest version of themselves. But yeah, so that's what I'd say on that at the moment.
I love that, baby. And I love the example you shared. I think that a lot of the times when we feel something, because our feelings are a compass, right? But if we can delay the time from the compass gives us a signal, and when we act on it and just give it some space, if we can feel the feeling, and we'll just start there for a moment. I think especially, I'm talking to the ladies here, we have gotten so disconnected from our emotional cores, from our feelings, that we oftentimes don't even know what we're feeling in the moment. And I think we can go and label it on an umbrella emotion of anger, when in reality, for women, a lot of the times it's deep sadness underneath any of the times we lash out at our partner for, not taking out the trash, or you said you were going to do this and you didn't. We're angry, but in reality, we're sad. And I think even knowing the difference between these two emotions makes the world of difference in how you have these conversations. So I'm actually going to invite anyone listening to this to do a body scan with me, which is the way that I personally identify my emotions. Now, if you're in a car or you're driving, please do not do this exercise. Take a pause or pass through. But anyone can do this at any time. This is something I actually did just yesterday in a situation that happened between Cam and I. I'll share that afterwards. But a body scan is simply a tool that you can use in your toolkit to get you more connected to your body and out of your mind. So at any time of the day, all you have to do is close your eyes, put both feet on the floor, and really draw your awareness to your mind. Start in your mind. How does your mind feel? Do you notice that you have a lot of racing thoughts? Can you draw awareness to what those thoughts are, like they're clouds in the sky? And we'll just notice them. Maybe it's, oh, I've got to go to the gym after this podcast. Oh, I've got a meal prep for the evening. Oh, I've got to write that Instagram caption. oh, I've got to have that conversation with a friend. I've got to text them back. All those thoughts, let's just see them pass in the clear blue sky of our minds. And we say, thank you, thoughts. Thank you, brain, for working so hard for me. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do to keep me safe. But I'm going to let all these thoughts, these racing thoughts that keep me on track, just float away like clouds in the sky. Now I'm going to draw my awareness down through my throat. How is it feeling? Is my throat dry? Do I maybe need to take a sip of water? Am I feeling hydrated? I'm going to go down to my heart. How is my heart feeling? Can I put my hand on my chest and just be with my heartbeat for a moment? Thank you, heart, for pumping all the beautiful blood throughout my body and allowing me to be sitting in this chair right now speaking to everyone. Take a deep breath and just thank your heart and your body for working so hard to bring you to this moment. How is your heart feeling? What do you notice? Any sensations? Now we're going to go down to our gut. Our gut is where women especially hold so many emotions. What do you notice about your stomach? Are you sucking in your stomach right now? Can you relax just 10% more? Can you breathe out just 10% more? Can you get your stomach to a point where you feel totally relaxed in this moment? Now we're going to take it down through the legs, through the thighs. We feel any pressure. We feel any constricting. We're going to go down to our calves. We're going to release just 10% more relaxed. And now down to our feet. Are both of our feet on the floor? Are we feeling grounded in this moment? We feeling like we don't need to tap our feet. We don't need to rush anywhere. We don't need to go anywhere. We don't need to do anything. We can just be totally still within our body. We don't have our legs crossed. We don't have our foot moving. We're just totally still. Now we're just going to breathe right here for a few seconds. In and out. Inhale. And exhale. Now right here in this moment, notice what tension or sensations do you notice in your body? Is there any part of your body that you feel a little bit constriction, a little bit tense? Can you take this as an opportunity to just add 10% more relaxation to your body? Really just let go. Let go if you're holding yourself in a certain way, if you're holding your jaw, if you're holding your stomach, you're holding your feet in a certain way. Just breathe in and let go with that exhale all of your struggles, all of your worries, all of your tension. And now from this moment, what you notice in your body throughout this entire experience is what your body is trying to tell you. If you noticed any sensations or thoughts coming up about maybe a conversation you need to have or something you need to do, that is a good signal. That is how you get in tune with your body and you listen to your emotion. So that was a body scan. You can do that at literally any time in the day. The best time that I would recommend leveraging this, now I am speaking specifically to women because I think that as emotional creatures, and I say that with all the positivity in the world, women are so magically emotional, and our emotions are a compass to everything that we could want and need in life. And if we're able to understand what our body is feeling by getting in tune with it, doing an exercise like we just did right there, your body will give you a map, a compass to your next step, if you can make the space and the time to hear it clearly. Now, let's say Cam walked through what he would do from a man's perspective in a triggering or hard conversation. I'm going to take it from a woman's perspective. So let's say that a man, and I'll go with everyone's been in a relationship before, or maybe it's, someone in your life, a man in your life. And let's say a man in your life said that he was going to come home and cook dinner for the both of you and take out the trash. And he comes home and he's like, honey, I'm so tired. I had such a long day at work. I'm going to do a, rain check for it. I swear, I'm going to do it. Okay. That's on dinner, right? So you feel a little something. You feel just a little something, a little disappointment, a little sadness, but you just try to let it go. Just try to keep it moving, right? Now you made dinner for yourself, you ate dinner, and you notice the trash is overflowing. And in this moment, because you're already disappointed and sad, what might come out would be something like, honey, the trash. Why didn't you take the trash out? You said you were going to take the trash out. Like, how many times do I have to tell you you need to take the trash out? You didn't even cook dinner, and now it's this. It's like, I can't win with you. Now, do you see how that built? Because I didn't tend to that first emotion. Now I'm stacking all of these unprocessed emotions that are going to come out in the moment where I feel the biggest tinge of, I see that trash overflowing and I am so angry, and now it's all going to come out. Okay. So that's one way of handling it. Now, my recommended way of handling this as a woman would be when your man comes home and the first thing that he says is, honey, I'm so tired. I had such a long day. I promise I'm going to cook you dinner another day. If you feel an emotion come in you at that time, now I highly recommend in that moment, see the human in him. See that this is a man who's trying his very best. This is a man who loves you so much, and him not cooking dinner is not a reflection of whether or not he loves you. Let's just remind ourselves who this is. This is not our enemy. This is our teammate. This is our love. This is our partner. And we want to hold him in compassion in that moment. So what I would do is go over to him, give him a nice hug, say, oh, baby, that's okay. I understand. We'll do it another night. I want you to feel really excited when you cook for me, and I want us to have an amazing meal together. Is there anything I can do in this moment to make you feel more refreshed? A lot of the time, go ahead, baby.
I was going to say, that's a 10 out of 10 answer. But like, I'd respond, I'd be like, no, I just thank you for allowing me to take a break tonight. I think when you say something like that, as a man, you'd think, oh, I'm giving the permission slip. The girl's giving me a permission slip. I never have to cook again. Never to take out the trash again. I just act this way. It never happened. But for some weird reason, because I was met with nothing but love, it prompts me to want to go home the next night and make the best dinner I've ever made for you and take out in multiple trash cans around the house, whatever it is. Like, you think we're giving them permission slip for behavior that we don't necessarily want, or undesirable behavior. But I think the opposite effect happens when you meet them with nothing but love.
Yes. Because one thing you have to remember about men, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong here, is that when a man doesn't follow through on his word, he is at his most vulnerable. And what you say and how you respond to him is everything. So if you take that moment to attack him or to pile on to the vulnerability he's already feeling, because he let you down and he let himself down. He said something and he can't follow through. And this is a very vulnerable moment for a man. And if you, as the woman in his life, take that as an opportunity to pounce on him and say, oh, but you said you were going to do it. I was looking forward to it all day. Oh, are you sure? Like, come on. Now you're going to activate a little something in him that wants to match that energy. And then what you'll hear from him is something like, well, what about the other day when you said you were going to do this and then you didn't? And now you're fighting, okay? So if in that moment you can remember that a man who said that he was going to do something, and then just in that day, I'm not talking about he's doing this consistently. Most men that you would want to be in a healthy relationship with are not dropping the ball consistently. And if they are, that's a whole nother conversation. But I'll take this man right here. He does not drop the ball consistently at all. So if he were to come to me and say, sweetie, I want to cook you dinner, and then got home at the end of the day and was too tired to do it, that's a very different story. That's why I would meet him with love, because I understand that him coming home and being too tired to do something he said he was going to do is him at his most vulnerable. And I don't even think men are consciously aware that that's what's happening, but they are, tired. They are hangry. They are at a low state already. And now they're coming to you saying, baby, I can't do it tonight. The best thing that you could do is just meet that man with love and understanding. And most of the time, I believe, if you were to go to a man and say, what in this moment can I do to make you feel more refreshed? He would just say, I just need a hug. Well, for men, men don't need to talk about it a lot of the time. Women need to talk about it. Men are different. Men just, they do their own thing. They process in their own little unique, weird ways. Usually it's just being alone.
Just gives her space.
Exactly. Just give them love and cuddles and hugs and space. And then you'll just have a very happy life. I don't concern myself with your problems unless you invite me into your problems.
Most definitely. So what would you do if in this situation, 4 nights in a row,
Yeah.
in the morning, I'm like, I'm going to make dinner, take the trash, do those other things.
Mm-hmm.
And the 4th night comes around where I've done it repeatedly, where I come home, it's like, just not tonight. What do you do then? If it's turning into a pattern?
So in my mind, a pattern is when something has happened 3 or more times in recent memory. So if that were to happen, I would probably I would go up to my man in a time where he's in a good mood. So I'll use Cam for example. When you have just gotten home from a workout, where you feel like you come home and you're like, that was a really good workout. Oh my gosh, I'm feeling really energized, feeling really strong. You're in that moment where I know that you are in a really heightened positive emotion and that you are not, the flip side, in a heightened negative emotion, which is going to make either one of these is going to exacerbate, right? So I would rather have you at the highest emotion possible and then tell you something that just might brings you to the middle than have you at the lowest emotion and bring you to rock bottom. So I would probably take that moment to be like, oh my gosh, baby, I'm so excited. And I'm so happy that you're feeling strong. And actually I was wondering, while you were gone, I was thinking about something I'd love to talk to you about. Oh, you want
Speak louder.
Speak louder? Okay. Well, this is how I would speak naturally. Yeah. So like there's something I was thinking about while you were gone that I'd love to talk to you about. Is now a good time? You want to talk later?
Yeah, what's up?
So I was noticing that over the last couple of days, you said that you were going to cook dinner for us. And then I totally understand that you get tired and like I get tired too. But I think sometimes when you share with me you're going to do something and it doesn't happen, I'm kind of left planning for something that doesn't happen and it just makes me a little disappointed. So I just want to share it with you because I don't want to ever create a situation where I have my feelings hurt and I don't feel comfortable to share them with you. So what do you think about that, baby?
Thank you for sharing, baby. And yeah, it's just like, work's been a lot recently. I think in the beginning of the day, I think I'm going to have enough energy to cook for the whole family and take the trash, do everything else that I asked to do. And every day I try to do things to make sure that at the end of the day I'm feeling more energized. But just recently with work and everything, it's just been really hard for me to do that. And I've noticed and I'm sorry for that.
Oh, that's okay, baby. I forgive you. I just wanted to bring it up because the last thing I would want it to do is to create a feeling in me that just kind of grows over time. So I'm wondering, is there a different way that, maybe we could approach it? Do you have any ideas that come to mind how we could approach it so that I feel more like I have a predictable dinner time routine, but also that you still feel refreshed and you don't feel like you have any pressure?
Yeah, I don't know at the moment, but I think we can come to something that works best for both of us. So that we can always have consistent meal times, not just for you, but for the kids and everyone else. So yeah, let me reflect on that and I'll get back to you on something we can do that kind of no matter how I'm feeling, we can make sure that we're taken care of.
Perfect, baby. Yeah, you take your time. Just come back to me whenever you think about it, okay?
Okay.
Love you, baby.
Love you too.
So that's how I would probably go about that. But how'd that feel for you?
That felt really good. It wasn't threatening at all. And it wasn't a statement of you need to start taking out trash more. You need to keep the promises you make yourself. You need to start cooking dinner so you can cook dinner. It was none of that at all. It's as if you took the approach of, I'm going to assume the best for him. I'm going to assume that recently he's been a lot in his mind and he hasn't been able to prioritize it while still kind of saying everything that's on your heart. And while still working on us coming to a better solution so that this problem doesn't persist going forward. And so simply by how you chose to say it made all the difference in the world. But that was only possible because you approached it through the lens of love.
Yeah.
You assumed the best in me. And you knew that no matter how this conversation went, you wanted our relationship to still be in a great position. and you wanted to encourage better behavior going forward. And you did that all in a very calm, peaceful, loving package, the way you did it. Now your tone of voice changed. I was telling you to speak louder on the microphone because it was so low and so like non-threatening at all that I was even worried to be in a podcast that would even come through. But the way you did it while also like touching me, it's hard for someone to think you're attacking them when you're holding your hand.
Yeah.
When you're doing something in a very light way of showing affection in that way, it completely disarms someone. Now, I know I've had times where you are having a conversation and then something comes up that you want to mention that you know is a little bit more argumentative, and you pull away.
I do?
The arm. No, not saying you do, but in general. Sorry, people pull away. I didn't mean you do.
Very much so.
But I've seen all the time, like
the Stonewall.
Yeah, either they're getting a reaction or before they say something, they pull away. You don't want this to be fast at all. You don't want it, if you're going to have any physical contact, you want to make sure it's very intentional and showing that there's a loving communication or interaction that's about to take place. And so I think there are certain kind of physical things we can do along with mental, emotional things we can do to set up the frame properly to have the most loving, productive, which is what you just had, conversation possible. So I love the lens you just did it from. You also assume the best of me in all moments.
Of course.
You assume that I'm having a tough time at work. You're assuming that things aren't going great at the moment. And that's why I'm falling short in these things. And I think that's a level of awareness that oftentimes to get to, we need to take a step back.
Yeah.
To remember. Because in the moment, it can be very hard to remember.
Absolutely. And I think why I mentioned at the very beginning that you want to have these conversations when it becomes a pattern. I think one thing that the women I speak to all the time get wrong is that they share their emotions every time they're disappointed. And I believe that if you are almost in like a constant basis having a man do something that's a little out of character or is not a pattern, and you are criticizing or nagging him about it or making a big deal of it, instead of just letting it go and trusting that this is a competent man who does not do this behavior very often, and I am just going to process my own emotions, sit with myself and say, this is not a pattern behavior, and I am just going to let this go. I think a lot of the time women just share all of their emotions, similar to what you're talking about with men. And it's not healthy for anyone to do that, men or women, to take all of their unprocessed emotions and take the dump truck and unload it on their partner. Yeah. So that's where I bring up the pattern of the behavior being so important, because I'm not saying that you just got to look the other way on bad behavior. But what I am saying is, if you're assuming good intent in your partner, them doing something like, I'll use Cam as an example. We don't drink. But if one day Cam said, you know what, I'm going to go out with the boys, and he got drunk and then he came home drunk, that's something that would probably never happen, to be honest with you. But let's say it happened one time when I have no history of Cam doing that behavior. I'm not going to then have him come home and then, have a talking to with him or chastise him or criticize him, because that is just an outlier of his behavior. That's not at all a problem. So I'm not going to make it a problem by bringing it up and now making him feel vulnerable and attacked and like, I don't believe in him or trust in him or think that he's like someone that he's not. Because everyone can go and do, out of the norm behavior sometimes, but we don't have to hold them to task, especially not men, and almost be like taking a microscope and saying like, oh, he did this little thing today and it devolves into keeping score, which then creates a whole slew of problems where you have an emotional wave of all of these little things that it's now like the nag fest with your partner, and you become a mother to the man that you're with.
Most definitely. And if you want your man to stay true to his commitments, praising him while he's up is great, but it's not nearly as important as caring for him while he's down. Oof. And so if I told you, I'm not going to drink anymore, I'm off that, and then something happens, like the perfect example you just said, if I come home after spending some time with the boys and I'm drunk, the last thing I need is for you to turn the cold shoulder and you'll go to bed without having conversation, without, talking at all, or without, not saying we're going to talk about this instance by any means, but just talk as if we're normal people.
Like shutting you out.
Yeah. If you shut me out at all, if you show me cold shoulder, that's going to make me feel shame and guilt, and potentially, if I'm drunk, anger. As opposed to seeing that as the perfect moment to test our unconditional love for someone. So if I come home and I'm stumbling in the door, can barely get my keys to fit to the, get in the house. Yeah. My breath smells terrible. I'm obviously very, very drunk. If that happens and you're there to be like, oh, baby, can I get you something?
Yeah.
Can I get you some water, electrolytes? Can I get you want some food? I can order some food. I can cook you some food. Is there anything I could do for you right now? If you care for a man when they're quote unquote at their worst, even if they didn't fall through in what you said they were going to do in that moment, if we can set aside that anger of, oh, how could he do this? He said never do this. If we can set that aside and show them nothing but love and care, that man will run through a brick wall for you. If you can hold them with love and compassion and literally care for them in those moments, and they feel that unconditional love from you, you have them for the rest of your life. Truly.
Because that's emotional safety for a man.
Exactly.
I think emotional safety for a man is respect.
Exactly.
Even at
a low moment, even at a moment where he's quote unquote weak or not at the top of his game.
Now imagine if all the boys came over to our house, to the house to watch the game, whatever it's going on, and then you start berating me in front of the boys.
Yeah.
That's the end of it.
Because that shows a lack of respect and trust.
A lack of respect, especially around people that men want to be seen in a great light around. But if you were like, not saying you got to become a servant by any means, but if you had some steaks, you're like, hey, you want me to cut you off some steaks?
Yeah.
Or, some brownies, whatever it is. Oh my gosh.
Or even if it was just clear that I liked you.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you know, the
affectionate.
fact, exactly.
Yeah. And then what I would do in that situation is make sure that they're probably having fun, they're drunk, whatever it is, they're probably enjoying that moment. They may not love they did that later the next morning, whatever it is. But in that moment, make sure that you meet them with that unconditional love. And then, like you're saying, when I'm in a good mood, whether the next day I'm feeling much better, or the day after that, because I'm no longer be hungover, whatever it is, and then you want to bring it up.
Yeah.
How would you bring it up in that case? How would you approach that conversation with me?
What am I upset about?
I got drunk with the boys and didn't tell you I was going to, and I came home later than I said I was. What would you say? How would you bring that up?
So you didn't tell me that you were going out, and you didn't tell me
I was going to hang out with friends.
But you didn't tell me you were going to drink.
You didn't tell me I was going to drink, and I'm home 3 hours later than I said I would be.
Okay.
And you're still up for some reason.
Okay. So when you do come home from that night, I would have done exactly what you said. I would have, greeted you and given you a hug, and you want some water with electrolytes, you want a banana, and I would have greeted you that way. Because foundational to this moment is that I love you and I want you to be happy and healthy and safe. So that's the foundation of it. Now, days later, not on the hangover day, I have now sat with myself, did the body scan that we talked about, identified what emotion am I feeling in this situation. It may have started as anger, right? Because this is a blindsiding day where I may have been concerned for his safety. I may be like, where were you? I was worried, right? So these are all these emotions. So there's a little bit of anger, right? Because he didn't communicate very well. And then when he did come home, he was drunk. Okay. But when I get to the root of these emotions by understanding where they sit in my body and then also processing them through going to yoga, going on a walk, holding my hand on my heart and getting in tune with my breath, once I've taken the time to process that and know that he's also in the best possible position to receive this conversation. Yeah. So this isn't right before we go to bed, which we could tell a funny story about that, or in the middle of, a dinner with other people, or right after he gets some bad news at work and he comes, with a problem that he wants to share. This is not when I'm saying this. I'm saying this, from my opinion, at a time where you are neutral, positive mood. You're feeling good about yourself. You're feeling like you got some momentum. You're just feeling stable. And you can feel, if you are in tune with your body as a woman, when that moment is. So I kicked my love. I give him a hug. I say, hey, baby. I just love having you in my life.
Serious.
Yes, I'm serious. Thank you for all that you do for me.
Thank you. I mean, I love doing it for you.
You're my favorite person in the world.
You're my favorite person in the world.
I love
I love you too.
you. You know, I was feeling into something. There was something on my heart that happened the other day, and I was wondering if it's a good time to talk about it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So at this point, we're either in the kitchen and I'm like pretty close to him. So when we stand, I'm like always kind of like looking up at him when we have these conversations.
But in arm's length.
But very close. And I'm also always touching him some way. We're holding hands, or I have like my hands somewhere on him. I think this is very important. Or you can go sit down and just be in like kind of a cuddly position or be able to touch. So I say, you know, when you were out with the boys the other night, baby, I was really worried about you when you didn't come home, when you said you were going to come home. I was wondering the next time that happens, would you be able to text me, let me know where you're at?
Yeah, baby, I'm sorry. I should have thought of you in the moment. I think just I lost track of time, and yeah, I drank when I wasn't really expecting on drinking, and yeah, I would feel the same if you did that. I'd feel nervous and worried. So yeah, I understand. I'll make sure that if that happens again, that I'll definitely let you know.
Did you have fun?
I had so much fun.
Oh, and so
I think I drank a little bit too much, but had so much fun.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I've told you a while back. Like, I'm really trying to, not drink, and I just got way too drunk. It was a good time, just got carried away. Right at the next day, as you can see, I didn't really get out of bed. So, yeah, it was just. I'm not super happy that like I got that drunk, but I really can't regret it. Like it was so a good time.
Well, it's good to have fun every now and again. It really doesn't happen very often, huh?
Yeah, no. I mean, I think this is probably the first time that I've been drunk since we met.
Yeah.
So yeah, I assume you probably weren't used to that.
No, I mean,
thank you for making us cookies and getting me water electrolytes.
Oh,
when that
of
happened.
course.
That was huge.
I just want to make sure you're feeling hydrated at all times. I can only imagine. I haven't drank in a long time either, but it always makes me feel so dehydrated.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure my baby's feeling good.
Yeah.
But thank you for telling me, baby. I would so appreciate, I love you so much. And sometimes I worry about you because, we spend so much time together when you're not with me. I'm like, where's my baby?
Yeah.
So it would just really make me feel so much more comfortable and safe if I knew where my baby was or when you were going to come home.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll definitely do that next time. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, babe.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you too. That was really good. This situation did not just happen. We're acting. But if that were to happen, it makes complete sense. And I think you handled it in such a way where it's going to be hard for me to ever get defensive by that because you were coming from such a loving place. And you're like, I was worried about your safety.
Mm-hmm.
And I think men, thankfully, the more logical thinkers can kind of see the other side of it because they're like, if you were out drunk, I'd be deeply worried about your safety. So immediately when you feel that worriness or whatever, sadness from someone else, we can kind of reflect on like, wait, would I feel sad if I'm in a situation? Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Exactly.
And you keep going that way. But yeah, I think how you approach that is absolutely perfect.
I want to take note of one thing that you may have noticed. I did not bring up the drinking. Do you notice that?
Yeah.
I let him bring that up because this is, like I said, not a pattern. This is not something that's happening every other night. This is something that's very out of character that he already, as you could tell, it was on his mind, it was on his heart that he did something it's very unusual for him that he's not necessarily proud of. Yeah. So I'm not going to say, hey, here's the first punch of like, I was worried about you and you drank. I'm not going to do a 1-2 here. I'm going to bring up one thing at a time. A lot of the time, when you bring up so much at once and you go on a giant speech of all the things that you've been thinking about and processing, the man gets completely overwhelmed and feels ganged up on and attacked. So what I would highly recommend is to take it one at a time. Take it with the issue that made you feel the most loving emotion, right? So the most loving emotion I felt in this situation is that I was worried for his safety. So I'm going to lead with that. Because me leading there allows the space for him to say, oh, this woman just really cares about me. And whenever you have a hard conversation, people panic a little bit. Their fight or flight kind of dings a little bit, even if this is somebody who they love, who they spend all day with. When someone says, I need to talk to you about something, you kind of see a little bit of red, you see a flood of emotions. So what you want to do is lead with the thing that's most loving. So when I said, hey, baby, I was worried about you, you notice he went to the next step. He actually addressed proactively my concern of the drinking before I even had to say a word. And what you'll notice is I also did not even comment on that. He already said, I did something as unlike me. That's his own problem to deal with. I don't need to add on to it by saying, oh yeah, actually I noticed that. And you were drinking a lot more. Now we've gone into a weird accusatory zone where he's like, oh man, like now I was judging myself. Now she's judging me. One of the most important foundations for emotional safety in men is non-judgment. So it's respect and non-judgment. And in my view, leading with the most caring, loving concern that you have in what happened with that man.
And by non-judgment for another man or for a man, doesn't mean that you can't have boundaries.
Yeah.
Or that you can't, that you can't have things that are just simply not okay.
Oh, no.
But when you feel, just not only for men, but just humans in general, when you feel as if they are feeling a sense of judgment towards themselves
yes,
for something they did, the last thing you want to do is pile onto that.
Yes.
You don't want to double down on the shame and guilt they're already feeling.
No, exactly.
That is what creates a spiral of destruction from within them and therefore will outwards. And so all we can do for people in those situations is show them unconditional love in whichever way we can, through non-judgment, through being there to serve them in any way you possibly can. And then once they're at that higher state, when they are ready to have that conversation, when they have a higher level of awareness that will allow them to think and feel clearly, that is when we can bring upon potentially any concerns or patterns we've noticed in a more loving way.
Yeah.
Now, I want to bring up a situation we had a few nights ago.
Yeah.
So this past handful of days has been weird, like intense,
yeah,
very odd. But I've had the story in the back of my mind for quite a while that you are addicted to your phone.
Mm.
And I'm not saying that's fully untrue or that is fully true.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know now that the way I approached it recently probably isn't the best way.
Mm.
And so how it happened was,
Thank you so much for watching that episode. We hope that you enjoyed. And if you want to hear anything more as far as thoughts, insights, or fun conversations, you can find it here, or somewhere all around here. Thank you for being here with us. Bye.
love y'all.